All right, everybody, here comes another series of rods that are all under the same sort of category of BFS. That's right, bait caster finesse systems. We've been asked a ton about this one. We do have some rods that sell pretty well in that category. We haven't seen it take off the way that a lot of people thought it would, where it would sort of replace the spinning rod in a lot of applications. The tournament anglers haven't seemed to find that to be the case just yet, although I did just last week talk to some high-level tournament anglers that are trying to squeeze it in and see where they can make it fit. But we're going to go through a bunch of different rods we sell here at Omnia Fishing in the BFS world. Definitely hoping to hear your feedback like the last time when we did chatterbait rods. We're not done with those, by the way. There's a lot more chatterbait rods to come, but we're going to start off with about 5 or 6 of these BFS rods. There'll be multiple segments of this because there's going to be a lot more, but we'd like to hear your feedback on ones we might be missing. We're just interested in what actually works and what makes the most sense. I've seen different schools of thoughts already on this with the BFS world. I've seen really moderate action rods. I've seen ultralight power casting rods that are just seem to have no action to them whatsoever. And I've seen everything to this extreme action right here that we got on this guy. Can't wait to bend this one on the wall and see how crazy the action actually is. But we're gonna start out bougie like we did the last time when we did chatterbait rods. This is the top of the line BFS rod we carry here as far as price goes, I would say. This is the Steez AGS Finesse Game Special. This rod's actually coming in at 6 foot 8 inches, and it is a light power fast action. It feels definitely like this rod with just some line on it, bending it on the floor and all that, like it's got a stinger tip, like a solid tip. The tip's insanely fast. It's crazy, like little quick tip action to this thing. So it's much, much faster than a lot of the other rods that I've played with, but that's why we're bending them on the wall. We're gonna see what the actions are, how they compare against each other. But if you're looking where price point don't matter, this one's gonna be the king of that one. This thing's insanely lightweight too. This one came in at 3.2 ounces when I weighed it. That's insanely lightweight. That's super light. And it feels super light. And it's obviously, this is basically like a little light spinning rod with a casting handle on it and casting guide. So let's go bend this thing on the wall and see how the little Steez Finesse Game Special comes out. All right, I'm here with that Steez AGS Finesse Game Special. This thing is extremely light. I think I mentioned it before. We're coming in at 3.4 ounces. A lot of that weight savings not only does it come from this little skinny blank on here, the SBF Nano Plus blanks the Steez rods use, but it's got those AGS guides, the carbon fiber guide train. It does make these rods feel super alive. I will say this, for as polarizing as the AGS guides have been, anybody who's actually fished with them will tell you flat out, I don't care what brand you're a fan of, AGS guides do increase the sensitivity of your rod dramatically. Like super dramatically. So this thing would be a killer BFS rod, that's for sure. Some super light line. All the rod bends we're gonna be doing, we're trying to do with BFS reels, so you can see what it's like. This one here happens to be a little PX BFS reel. And I've fished with this exact rod and reel for crappies. And it threw crappie baits pretty dang good. So I get it, it's fun. Let's bend it and see how it goes. And just like every other time we bend a rod, it tells a different story than it does when you just put some line on it and bend it. So I would have said to you that this rod would have been an extra fast stinger tip type rod, but when you actually put some pressure on it, apply it with a bait on it, it's kind of exactly what they said. It's a fast action. The tip's not as extreme unless you're just trying to work the bait itself. Then you can see just a little bit of that tip up there will dance around. It is fast action with a kind of a slow load, but it's soft enough power that you're not going to have to worry about breaking. This line I have on here, I believe it's either 5 or 6 pound test. I think it's 5 pound test. Really light line for a bait caster anyway. And as you can see, I can confidently bend it because this blank is nice and soft and forgiving. The tip's really, really wild on this one. This would be a fun one for throwing really small hard baits. Just being able to actually get some distance on a little tiny jerkbait or a little tiny topwater, so the tip loads up like nothing. So cool rod here from Daiwa, the Steez family. This is on the high end, like I said. Let's go try out some other BFS rods and see how the other price points are playing, and what the actions are like on a lot of these BFS rods. This is an interesting BFS rod here. This one is the Megabass Destroyer P5 Zlet. It's a 6.6 ultralight, extra fast / slow action. So you do the math on that one. I'm gonna guess that's because this tip is probably if it's not solid, I think it could be solid. It's an extremely, extremely soft tip, but I think because of the ultralight power, the backbone's not till way down the blank here, so it kind of loads. If you got a fish on, it's a moderate action. If you're just working a bait, it's an extra fast. Like the tip's super, super light on this thing. It doesn't feel as extreme a tip as the Steez felt, but it's lighter power, so the whole rod wants to bend, and you can bend this tip super easy because it's an ultralight, right? And it's extra fast. So this thing came in at 2.8 ounces. This might end up being one of the lightest casting rods we ever weigh here, and it feels that way. It's super light with this little BFS reel on here, the little PX BFS reel. This thing feels insanely fun to fish with. I'm not 100% sure as far as competitive angling, what technique you wanted to play with this. Obviously, BFS fishing is something that's new to the U.S. market. It's not new at all in the globally. BFS has been around a long time, I'm afraid to admit my age on it. I've been playing with some of the BFS reels a long time ago that were from the Japanese manufacturers. So interesting to see now that we got some rods starting to fill the category out though, how the actions are gonna compare, how each manufacturer kind of sees a BFS rod's action and what it should be. So let's go bend this Megabass P5 Destroyer Siglet. All right, I already got corrected on the power here. It is actually a super ultralight, which would make you mad because I've never even heard of that, but it kind of makes sense, especially when we got it on the wall up here. It takes literally nothing to get this rod to bend. Like, I mean it. Like, I could just tap my finger on it, I think, hard enough and get this thing to fold over. It's a really, really light powered rod. There's probably, you could throw just about anything you want to throw on this thing. I think your limitation would be, honestly, how good your thumb could get and how loose you could get this reel running. Because the blank will just bend. I mean, it bends beautifully, or super easily, I should say. You don't see that extreme tip action you saw out of the Steez, and I think that's because this tip is so insanely light. Like, and I mean light. I get what they're saying now with like the tip is extra fast, but the backbone is moderate, and they're not wrong. The action of the rod is, I would put it more in that moderate. Forget the whole extra fast tip thing. The tip is light enough that, you could impart a shaking. I mean, you could shake a minnow with this thing on forward-facing sonar too and be just fine. The question is, can you get a hook in them, with how soft this rod is without the little teeny BFS hook? That's kind of the nice thing about all the BFS baits. You get these little small light wire hooks that you can get a hook and fish without having to set the hook or really blast them with any backbone. So really cool rod. I'm not sure what I would use it for, but I guess I'm not thinking in the sense of a true BFS angler, that's doing a lot of the really cool small bait stuff, and especially trout fishing with the trout fishing stuff. But for as far as like the tiny little hard baits like Megabass has for BFS now, and some of the micro finesse stuff from Z-Man that we throw a lot of here at Omnia, a lot of us guys have got a lot of confidence in a lot of those little baits. You could certainly get away with throwing any of that stuff with this. So cool rod from Megabass, the Megabass P5 Destroyer Siglet. It's a 6.6 super ultralight. Go check this one out. Dobyns Sierra BFS. This one's in this fight because we sell the fire out of this rod. That's right, I would bet you that this is probably our most popular BFS rod, bang for your buck, and just total sales volume, right? Like unit sales, right? People have found this rod to be one of the best values in that world of BFS, period. This thing's under 200 bucks, and it's got some pretty solid action to it. It doesn't feel like a buggy whip. I kind of dig. So far of all the ones I've picked up that aren't even a super expensive, out of all of them, even the super expensive ones, this one feels like it's got a more traditional casting rod action to it instead of almost being like some sort of spinning rod with a casting handle on it. So I'm interested to go bend this thing. It came in at 3.6 ounces, and with this little teeny BFS reel on it here, it feels really nice. It's light, and it feels like a casting rod that I could set the hook with. So I'm interested to see how it bends over here with this light line on it. Let's go bend the Dobyns Sierra BFS rod. All right, this rod, this Dobyns Sierra, is a 7-foot light power, extra fast action. And I'll tell you, as I went to bend it, it's hard to see it on the bend here that it's extra fast, unless you're just moving the tip up there. It definitely feels faster than the other ones. It might not look it that way on the wall here, but I will tell you from resistance, from the actual physical bending of the rod, this thing's a lot faster than the other ones. And as I said, as you were just bending it off the wall with just a line, it did feel more like a traditional casting rod. So this rod does have a little bit more action out there towards the tip than the other one. Now the other ones have wilder tips, but they're lighter powers as well. This one seems a little bit more of a, you could get away with throwing stuff that's maybe a little bit bigger than what would be considered BFS tackle. If I wanted to fish 10, 12 pound tests on this thing, no problem whatsoever, I would think. And you could fish probably a little bit more universal bass fishing lures, unweighted soft plastics and things like that, than having it just be a BFS rod. It's still too light power for me to be just like a traditional in the rotation kind of tournament rod. But man, for some fun fishing applications, this thing does seem like a lot of fun. I just want to throw tiny poppers and topwaters with this thing so bad, because it's long enough. I think you can get some serious distance even with those light little lures, and I bet you'd be a blast fighting those fish on this thing. And it's soft enough that you could get away with that lighter line. So check out the Dobyns Sierra BFS series. These things are a screaming deal for the money. Shimano Exprides entered the BFS fight, and should come to you as no surprise, already is impressing for the price. This isn't a cheap rod by any means. It's not coming in as a winner for us in the price point category, but it is a lot less expensive than the two rods that it came within the same weight category anyway. This thing came in at 3.4 ounces. It's not as light as the Steez or the P5 Destroyer, but man, that's still pretty dang light and small feeling for a $300 rod. So much less expensive than the super high-end stuff, but it feels really high-end. And that's what the Exprides shine at, and hence I think why we move so many Exprides here at Omnia Fishing. This one here is a light power, fast action, 6.8. So we're starting to see some commonality between some of the BFS rods. Very interested to see how this one bends over here on our wall, the Shimano Expride 6.8 light fast action BFS rod. All right, Shimano BFS, the Expride, this should be no surprise to any of you. This is going to be one of the more popular BFS rods that we have. I would say out of all the rods, once again, kudos to Shimano again. Very accurate in their power descriptions. This is a fast, or should say action descriptions. This feels a lot faster than the other ones. Once again, on the rod bend, because they are such light powered rods, they all look moderate because I can load them up and just bend them right past the tip pretty easily. But this one, you're getting a lot more pressure up in the tip, even than the Dobyns Sierra, honestly. This one here feels even more universal than that rod. I would like the extra length you get out of that Sierra, and I also like that Sierra's price point. But this thing, once again, Shimano with this Expride series seems to just show like they can play with any high-end rod that they want for a lot less money. Very impressive stuff from Shimano. These rods feature their monocoque handles, cork grips. I love the fact the foregrips are cork and no threads exposed. They're very comfy rods to mess with. Nice guide trains on them. There's really no complaining about these whatsoever. And man, I tell you, for a BFS rod, this thing feels like it's a medium light powered blank with a really fast tip on it that you could do a whole bunch of stuff with. I wouldn't be scared to throw a decent sized jerkbait on this thing if I was in a jam. So if you're looking for a rod that you might not just want to use for BFS, maybe some other stuff as well, I think this, so far out of all of them, feels like a rod that you could jump out into some other techniques other than throwing tiny, tiny little stuff. Cool rod from Shimano. I'm excited. I actually want to get this one out and throw it. I have not yet, so I'm going to do that. So I'll give you a report on it later. Shimano Expride 6.8 light power fast action BFS. Last one for this grouping anyway. Another volume one, because this one comes in at $130. And it's made in the good old US of A. This is the Cashion Element BFS rod, the bait finesse system as they put right on the handle there. This one is a 610 medium light fast action. And it seems like a trend as we go down at price point here. They tend to get a little bit more universal, it appears. They're not so drastically BFS. This one was a bit of a surprise, the most like a regular casting rod. I think it would be more universal. Probably get away with some light line, but I could still use it for some other stuff too. So if you're not 1000% committed to throwing 3/32 ounce hair jigs with a casting rod, this might be the rod for you. So let's go bend the Cashion Element BFS rod. All right, I'm here with that Cashion Element BFS rod. This one coming in at $130, like retail price of this thing. It's really nice for that kind of money. 3.6 ounces, so it's lightweight. This thing is a medium light fast action. It's got some backbone to it. It's the first one with a little bit of backbone to it. I would absolutely be very happy throwing regular size topwaters and jerk baits, things of that nature with this rod, no problem whatsoever. But it does have a light enough tip to it. I mean, I got light line on this, and I'm not scared of yanking on this at all. As long as you could cast that really small stuff with this rod, this one to me would be the one that I would probably be the most easily transitioned into BFS fishing for bass. I have been crappie fishing a lot with the BFS stuff. I've done it the last couple of springs, and I think it couldn't be funner, right? I haven't done it enough with bass fishing to be an expert in it by any means. Just started playing around with it. This is going to be one that I grab now that I've been messing with it, because this one would definitely be a good, comfortable transition from traditional casting equipment to this bait finesse system stuff. So like I said, you're looking at an American-made rod for 130 bucks that you could throw BFS stuff, and I still think this would be a killer, like just traditional popper rod. It's really nice. So 6'10", medium light, fast action, Cashion Element.